Good afternoon, everyone. My name is George Melendez, systems engineer here at ScriptLogic. We're going to go ahead and start the presentation today. Like I mentioned before, if you have any questions during the presentation, or if you have any issues with viewing the GoToMeeting console, just type it in the question section there right into within the GoToMeeting console, and I will address those accordingly. So today, what we're going to be focusing on is security. With a primary focus on USB and port security, I'll show you how that works within Desktop Authority, being able to assign access to devices, read, write, and then assign that to users or group within your Active Directory environment. The next section we'll talk about is patch management, really focusing in on third-party patches. Microsoft typically gets all the attention, so third-party patches, such as Adobe, who's been really updating frequently, sometimes that falls through the cracks. So you want to have a system in place that's able to address those third-party patches. And then I'll briefly show you the malware module within Desktop Authority, being able to add exclusions, set your actions depending on what your organizational needs are. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do here, I'm going to share on my desktop. Okay. Like I said, if you have any issues, just go ahead and shoot me a little comment there in the questions section, and I'll take care of it if I can. Okay. So the first piece we're going to talk about today is USB port security, which is definitely a risk in environments today with so many portable devices out there that users will bring in from their home. Maybe they plug in their home computer, they come to work, or just to be more secure. You don't want files being copied to USB drives. This can be any type of information related to your organization that you want to protect and make sure that it's not leaking out. USB port security is going to be able to help you accomplish that. Okay? So I'm going to just, jump right into it. So USB port security. So the first settings here is we're going to create what is called a permission set. So that's going to contain the actual settings or the access within that set. What you want to allow read, what you want to allow write. So I'm going to edit this permission set here. And you can have as many permission sets as you want and then tie those to either groups or users within your environment. So to show you all of the devices that we support, and this is on specific devices, so BlackBerry devices, CD readers, FireWire, USB ports, even hard disk drives. As long as it's not a boot drive, we can control access on there. Wi-Fi devices. So, and you'll notice the different columns here we have. We have read, write, full control, deny, full control. So this could be your desktop admins. It can be your system administrators. You want to make sure that obviously they have full access to all the devices that are coming through that USB port. And another note, we don't lock it down, the whole port. No, we're going to filter it by devices here, and you'll see these. So this is great because now it's not an on or off type situation. Now there's maybe situations where you need to allow read, and there's maybe situations where you need to allow write or full control, but you don't want to open it up just for one device. So here you can filter on different devices. So my first permission set, this is going to be for my desktop technicians, my system administrators, maybe executives, the same thing. They don't want to be locked down. Maybe they're listening to music, getting paid a bunch of money. And then your user environment, which is really what you want to target. Being able to set that access on those devices so none of that information is flowing in and out, and also being able to report on that. And I'll show you a little bit later how we can generate reports based on different activities, like file access and by user and by computer, just to see what's going on. Just in case you may have a suspicion of someone copying files, you can report on that. We'll log all that information as it flows in and out. All right, so now that we have our permission set, now we can assign it to different groups. So admins, this can be domain admins or any type of security group you have in your environment. Execs goes to the executive Active Directory users. You can tie it to a user or a group or a combination of both. Here I have Mr. Nicolas Cage. For some reason I like picking on him. He's an easy target, but I'll show you the end user experience in a second. And I just want to point out here, it is a client that gets installed, and the way we are able to accomplish all these permission sets and being able to filter by devices is we're going to interface with the USB driver. And it's a small client install with desktop authority. Once that's installed, then we can apply those permission sets and then configure our targeting with validation logic. I'll show you that in a sec too. Okay. Now login, here you can collect all the information in regards to successes for files, success failures, and device success and failure. And then you'll be able to generate those reports. Now there may be cases where you need to open up security for devices and maybe block security for devices. So under this tab here, you have the option of providing those devices for access or denial. So this will be like a white list and black list. So here, if you have could be, let's say for example, your desktop technicians, and they have a USB drive that they use. They typically go to a workstation, plug it in, install some applications. It's just easier for them. You still want to keep security tight, so we can add that to the whitelist. And as long as that information is plugged in during the time of the data collection of the actual hardware information being created on the workstation, we'll pull in the vendor ID, the product ID, or the serial number. And that's required in order for these lists to work. So you got to have at least the vendor ID, serial number, or the product ID, serial number. Okay, you can add that in there. This will get populated from the device hardware inventory, and you can add it in here. Same thing with vendor with your blacklist. So you'll be able to add the vendor ID, product ID, or serial number. Okay, if you want to do an import at those devices, that information in there, you can import that information if need be. Now, there's also administrative override. So for those times where you need to open up security, maybe you have a device that's on a whitelist and you're doing some troubleshooting, you need to plug in a USB device, you can enter that password and it'll open up security. Next time a user logs off, logs back in, it's going to reapply that particular policy. This is good to provide for your desktop technicians or your administrators, and maybe even for executives. Maybe they don't want to be locked down, so they can enter that password and override it. And then validation logic is your targeting. So this is going to target not only the client install, but also how the policies are applied. And if you are familiar with Desktop Authority, you already know about validation logic, but I just like to briefly go into and show you your targeting options here. And you can get as granular, as broad as you want. If you wanted to maybe roll it out in some type of pilot environment, you can individually add the computer names in here. If they all start with test, you can use a wildcard here. If they fall within the same subnet, you can do that. You can even target a group and exclude a user from that group by using a not operator here. So we have a lot of options with validation logic for targeting. Okay, this is one of the nice features of Desktop Authority, one of the more powerful features, one that I really like a lot. Okay, a couple of different targeting options here, by class, OS, and then timing is just when this policy is going to be applied. So it can be at logon, at log off, or refresh, which works just like group policy, where every 60 minutes it'll be reapplied or applied on that workstation. Okay? So now that we have our permission sets all good to go, we've configured everything, we've configured our whitelist, we have our administrative override and our targeting. Now once it's deployed on the user side, and I'll just show you a little bit about the user experience. So here we can view any permissions that are applied to the account here. Now you see I'm logged in as Mr. Nicolas Cage, and it'll immediately show me all the permissions that he has here. So if there's any doubts about, or any if you need information on the permissions, you can come right in here, right click the icon, and it's going to show you all the permissions that are configured for that particular user. Okay? Now just to show you an example, I've kind of locked down Mr. Nicolas Cage. He's suspect to me. I don't want him copying files. from a network location to the USB device. So I configured his access to deny write. So as soon as he goes, and I have a removable disk here. This is a USB flash drive. So as soon as I go to copy that file on there, it's going to say you need permission to perform this action. So it's immediately going to block that particular event. And it'll also log it too. So you'll be able to report on it. If you want to do a report for Nicolas Cage and see all his file access denies, you can filter out. There's plenty of USB ports in the console to show you all of those particular events. Okay? So let's switch back to the console, and I'll show you some of the events or the reports for USB port security. So here we can report on all device events. Doesn't matter. A couple different parameters here if you want to filter out by the event, a failure order, if it's just informational, or if it's success, if it's a virtual machine, a computer type, and also the time frame. And this will generate that report. So you'll be able to see it broken down by computer, when it was logged, the user domain, the action, the type of device, the description, and the event severity. So once again, we can filter it out. If you want to just do failed events, excuse me, you can do that. So we'll filter out for failed events. Let's take a look here. So we'll see all of our fail audits. Okay. If you wanted to see by computer, this will give you an inventory of all the devices per computer. And here's where we'll collect that USB product ID and vendor ID. Okay. Now, if you wanted to see detail by user here, it's going to return all the users, but it'll be broken down by the user itself. So we'll see here what the username is, and this is just automatic device discovery. You know, like when you plug in when you put in a CD in and it reads it. So we're auditing that information. So it's pretty granular as to what. But we can scroll down the page here. Let's see, and we'll look at a different user. Let's see if we can see. We got a lot of events. All right, so we got Mr. Administrator here. Some of his events. I'll break this down here. You know, the event severity, the action read denied, read denied, read denied. So it gets really, really granular. And these reports here can be exported if need be. You can export these, or if you want to pump them into Excel and do some further sorting, you can do that. The file access log, which is another one you'll probably be looking at too. Kind of looks the same. Breaks it down by computer. Okay. You can just see a top 10 if you want to. Just gives you a brief overview. Some charts here and pretty pictures. Okay. And then you can see users denied for maybe portable devices. And how many events are generated. So as you can see, the reports are pretty robust. So you're getting a lot of reports here. If you need to do some forensic analysis, or if there's a issue where you need to see if anything was performed by a user that may be suspect, like my example, Mr. Nicolas Cage, you can come in here and run your reports and then find all the events for that particular user. Okay, so that's the first section here, USB port security. Now we're going to move into patch management. So I'm going to go to patch distribution here, and I'll show you all the different sections. Now, we compile all the third-party updates for you onto one location for download. That means you don't have to go to individual vendors to be able to get your updates. So you can go to, typically you have to go to Adobe, and then maybe Oracle, and then Google, and Firefox, or Mozilla. Here, we compile all that information for you. Typically, it's available 24 to 48 hours. There's some additional testing that it goes through, but once it's available, you can come into this section and see what's included in that XML file. So the XML file contains all the released patches and what's available for download. Now, you can come in here and then sort by the information that's relevant for you. So here we can sort by severity, also by product. So let's say, for instance, we want to see all the Adobe Reader 9 updates. So we can select all of those that are available. And let me just scroll through the list to show you the third-party support. So Adobe obviously is one that's been getting attention a lot lately. So Reader and Acrobat. So it got Shockwave there too, which updates pretty frequently. Apple products, if you have them out there, hopefully you don't, but if you do, you got iTunes, QuickTime, and Safari. Citrix, we support presentation servers and app. DirectX, Firefox is another one. If you have that in your environment, you want to make sure that you are compliant in regards to updates. We support that. SeaMonkey and Thunderbird. Flash is another one that updates pretty frequently. You want to stay on top of that. We support that. Google Chrome. Oh, I didn't even notice here. We even have Google Talk. Let's see what else is there. All your Microsoft 64-bit, 32-bit OSs, we support those. We got SharePoint, Shavlik, Skype, even SourceForge, which is a great site. SQL, SunJava, which updates pretty frequently too. So you can see third-party support is pretty extensive. Then you pick your type. So we're only concerned with security patches. You click search. It's going to show you what's available. We can download those patches here. Once you download them, it'll stage it on what we call distribution servers. So distribution servers is going to house the content and make it available to those clients that need the install files. So this is good for remote sites. You have a remote site that has, your bandwidth is kind of limited. You can go ahead, copy those files there, configure your deployment. Once you're ready to deploy, or once that scheduled time is kicked off, the clients will pull it locally as opposed to going across the WAN, saturating your WAN link, sucking up all your bandwidth. It'll keep it local. That way they don't have to go all the way across the WAN just to pull installation files, which could take forever. Okay. Now once we have those patches downloaded and staged on our distribution server, we can create a deployment. So I'll show you an example of deployment that I have in my environment. So, excuse me, first section here, we're going to focus on Adobe Reader 9 updates. You'll notice here this will look the same as the previous screen. Right now we're just selecting the patches for deployment. So here we were downloading, now we're selecting which patches are going to be part of this deployment. So I've got my patches already selected. The next, excuse me, if a user happens to be logged in, you can present some prompts. Show them a balloon message, you can ask permission, specify timeout, then what happens when that expires. So either go ahead and patch or postpone it. Even control reboot. Right? And then time is going to be your schedule. When do you want these patches to be deployed? Maybe you want to do them, well, that's in the past, but maybe you want to do them, during mid-morning or early morning so that you're not disturbing your user environment. But if you want to make sure that workstations are patched, even if it's offline, you can select this option here. So if that computer is offline at that time, as soon as they boot up, go ahead and patch them because you want to make sure every workstation is patched out there. And then we can use our targeting or validation logic to determine who's going to get those patches. Now, I have a little granular extreme example here. So I'm checking for AcroRD32.exe for Reader. That's the executable. And I'm using an operator here. I'm saying if you're less than or equal to version 9, you get these updates. Now, what does that do? It gives me the advantage of only targeting Reader 9 installs. I'm not going out and being broad and say every workstation process this. Now I'm saying all I want is to be able to focus on my Reader 9 installs, and everybody else, if you don't have this file with this version on here, you get excluded. Okay? So that gives you a little bit control, granular control. And then these rules, these can be appended to. So it can be if this file version and this domain, this computer name, this group, this OU, or this OU goes on and on and on until you get to the criteria that is going to be suitable for your organization. And this is really flexible. And for those unfamiliar with Desktop Authority, definitely sets us apart. It makes it easy. You can see here everything is GUI based. Okay? Then for reporting, we're focusing on our patch. We have an executive summary here. It gives you kind of a top 10, just a quick look, who's your top 10 culprits out there by patches missing and by severity. I don't have too many workstations in my nice sterile environment here. So Patch management status. Now we can choose some parameters, get some information. For the most part, you want to see what's missing on the workstations, but you can do all of the various statuses, or if you just want to see what's installed, you can do that. You can break it down by computer, all the computers that report into the console, by OU, OS, virtual machine, computer type, and then the time frame. So we can say scan since a particular date. Click OK, and it's going to return that information. Line item here is the computer name, and then the status which we chose. For this report was missing, it's going to show you all of the missing patches. And show you when it was last detected. So it's saying last detected that it was missing on this date. And then we can configure our, go into our console, configure a deployment to target these workstations and make sure that they're compliant. Like I said, these reports obviously can be exported if need be. Okay? All right, so now we're going to move on to our malware. Fairly simple, but effective. We work off of the Viper engine, and just give you a little background. Viper totally redesigned their virus scan. And in the newer version, it's going to be a full virus scan application, so the full feature set. In this version right here, we're only doing malware. So in the new version, it's going to be a full virus scan. Viper is very efficient. Like I said, it was built from the ground up. Definitely gets detailed into what it scans and what it finds. So it's a very efficient virus scanning engine. So here, again, it's a client install. You just go ahead and select the action to install. You can give the users the ability to see any messages if it finds anything. And here's your scan options. You can just do a quick, a full, if you want to customize it. Enable the real-time processor. What happens if it finds something, quarantine it, leave it alone or remove it. The minimum action to take, say, okay, at least low, we need to do something for it. And then for any exclusions out there that may come up as spyware, you can add those exceptions in here, and that way they won't come up as a malware or spyware. Okay? Now, reporting is fairly simple. We'll go here. Here we can do summary page. Now, I'm not going to get anything in here because, I'm a good user. I don't go to browsing different sites and pulling out malware and stuff like that. But if this was your typical user environment, I mean, you would see, it will list the top 10 computers. And that'll break it down by summary. And then you'll be able to see the activity. You break it by computer name or even put a time frame in there. Like I said, my environment's pretty clean. Definitely, if you deploy this in your environment, you can see a lot of entries in here. But it's all being logged, and it's going to report up to the console. You'll be able to generate these reports. You have some parameters here to filter out some information that's relevant to that report. But any activity, it's going to report up and let you know exactly what happened. Okay, so that is the different or the various ways of how Desktop Authority can assist you with making your environment just a little bit more secure, especially with USB port security, not blocking the whole port, being able to filter out per device, patch management with that third-party patch support, which is so important these days. Like I said, Microsoft gets all the attention. Forget about your third parties, and that can definitely fall through the crack. Desktop Authority is going to allow you to address those needs in regards to third-party support. And then the last piece there, what you talked about, was removing malware and adding your exceptions in there, and then also viewing the various reports that are within Desktop Authority.